Hello, and welcome to Here is Your Real Info podcast show. I'm Sebastián Silva, and this is the space where we bring you the best in personal development, health, finance, blockchain, and so much more. Here, you'll find a place where research and knowledge come together to help you understand the world around you and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. Each episode is an invitation to explore news from all around the world, from the latest in technology and digital assets to the keys for solid personal growth. I am not a financial advisor, nor do I claim to be. I'm simply sharing my humble opinion based on information I gather from other YouTubers, experts, and world-renowned figures who dedicate their lives to understanding these subjects. I conduct my own research, diving deep into what's happening with cryptocurrencies, blockchain projects, and much more. This show is also a tribute to all my mentors, a way of showing gratitude for all the knowledge they've shared, which I now wish to pass on to you, so we can continue growing together. This project is a personal journey of investigation and learning, where artificial intelligence plays a key role in uncovering new perspectives and understanding the world in a different way. Here is Your Real Info podcast show is a place where you won't just get information. We'll expand our consciousness together. Expect exclusive interviews with people who are making a difference in their fields and a wealth of information that could be crucial for your personal development. Your support means everything. I invite you to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, it's free, and if you find value in what I share, send this content to your friends. Give this podcast a chance. Take some time to study the information and draw your own conclusions. We're building a community of curious people, open to knowledge and ready to face the future with the best tools. Special thanks to our sponsors, Keep the Flame, Store, X39 Stem Cells, and Digital Solar Solutions, who share our vision of a better informed world full of opportunities. So, get comfortable and prepare for a journey of learning, growth, and discovery. Here is Your Real Info podcast show with Sebastián Silva, where information becomes knowledge and knowledge becomes power. Let's explore the world together in a more conscious and profound way.
That is you and the world. Yes, there is a world out there, and even if you decide you don't want to meet it, it's still going to hit you right in the face. Believe me. So, best you start thinking about the world now and what it means to you. What does the world mean to you? Come on, a little class participation here. Is it just this class you want to get out of? Your house, your street? Any further any of you want to go than that? Yes?
The mall. That's only like 2 miles away from me.
Well, let me ask you another question. How often do you think about things that happen outside of this town? You watch the news? Yes? No? All right, so we're not global thinkers yet, but why aren't we?
Because we're 11.
Good point. What's your name?
Trevor.
Maybe Trevor is absolutely right. Why should we think about the world? I mean, after all, what does the world expect of us?
Expect.
Of you. What does the world expect of you?
Nothing.
Nothing. My God, boys and girls, he's absolutely right. Nothing. I mean, here you are, you can't drive, you can't vote, you can't even go to the bathroom without a pass from me. You're stuck right here in the 7th grade. But not forever, because one day you'll be free.
Yeah!
All right, but what if on that day you're free, you haven't prepared, you're not ready, and then you look around you and you don't like what the world is? What if the world is just a big disappointment?
We're screwed.
Unless you take the things that you don't like about this world and you flip them upside down right on their ass. Don't tell your parents I used that word. And you can start that today. This is your assignment. Extra credit. It goes on all year long. Now, wait a minute. What? What's wrong with this? What's the matter? Yes?
It's like so...
So what? There must be a word to finish that sentence. Someone help her?
Weird. Crazy.
Weird. Crazy.
Hard. Bummer.
Bummer. Hard. How about possible? It's possible. The realm of possibility exists where? In each of you. Here. So you can do it. You can surprise us. It's up to you. Or you can just sit back and let it atrophy. Atrophy. If there is a word you hear that you don't understand, there's a dictionary at the front of the room. Look it up. And there are these dictionaries, which you will carry with you at all times, because in this class, we're going to learn to love words and their meanings. Any questions?
Yeah. So you'll, like, flunk us if we don't change the world.
Well, no, I wouldn't do that. But you might just squeak by with a C.
What'd you ever do to change the world?
Well, Trevor, I get a good night's sleep. I eat a hearty breakfast. I show up on time. And then I pass the buck to you. Now, I want you all to write your names in these books. And what's your name? Molly. All right, I want Molly to look up the word active.
Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to dig into something that feels like it's everywhere these days. The World Economic Forum, the WEF.
Right, the WEF.
And those big future-y goals they always talk about, 2030, even 2050. You sent over some seriously interesting articles, notes, all that, so we're here to help cut through all the noise. What's the real need-to-know stuff?
It's true. It's easy to get lost in the weeds with this topic. Our mission today, if you will, is to distill everything down, find those crucial connections between ideas that seem, at first glance, kind of all over the place.
Because, let's be real, the future isn't just some abstract thing, right? This stuff the WEF's talking about, it'll actually affect us. But First things first, we got to start with the big dog in the room, the WEF itself. You mentioned your notes, always picturing them as, well, a bunch of elites in Davos.
Yeah, it's an image a lot of people have, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Like your research pointed out, they were founded back in '71, right? With this mission, improving the state of the world.
Yeah.
Key phrase in there, though. Public-private cooperation.
Okay, interesting. And we'll definitely circle back to that whole cooperation thing. Is it always as simple as it sounds? But first, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. When we talk about the WEF, their influence, what are we actually talking about? What does that look like?
You got it. Great question. Your source, straight from the WEF's website, it talked about their work on reskilling millions of workers, getting them ready for that digital economy. It gives us a peek into how they operate. It's not about making laws. It's about, getting governments, businesses, organizations all working together to tackle those big, hairy challenges.
So they're like the ultimate global matchmaker, bringing together the people with the power, the resources to actually get things done. But, like any good matchmaker, I bet there are questions about their motives. Does everyone actually benefit equally from these connections?
Exactly. That's the tension, right? And it's something we're going to see again and again as we dig into Agenda 2030.
Which, speaking of, feels like the perfect transition. We all know the U exists, obviously. But Agenda 2030, those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Where does the WEEF fit into all of that? Feels like we're wading through alphabet soup sometimes, doesn't it? UN, WEF, SDGs.
So, cut to the chase for me. What's the big idea behind Agenda 2030? Why should we even care?
You're telling me, right, it's a lot. Okay, so Agenda 2030, basically it's like this big, ambitious plan, right, for a better future, more sustainable, more equitable, all that. All 193 UN members signed off on it. All of them. Wow, okay. So everyone agrees this is important.
Right. It's a shared vision. But here's the thing. It's not actually legally binding, which, considering how much they're trying to do, that's kind of interesting. You specifically mentioned Goal 13 in your notes, which is all about climate action.
Right, climate action. Huge topic. What does that actually look like on the ground, though? And how does the WEF play into it?
It's not just about cutting emissions.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But you know that Global Risks Report, the WEF puts out every year,
Yeah, I've seen it.
they constantly rank climate change as, like, top 3 threat to the global economy. And this is where you see their whole public-private cooperation thing in action.
So connecting governments with businesses, trying to push for more investment in, like, renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The WEF, they're like the facilitators, getting everyone together, starting the conversations, pushing for those solutions that actually line up with Agenda 2030. And yeah, climate action front and center.
Sounds like a pretty powerful position to be in. But you mentioned some skepticism about the WEF's role, too. What are the downsides? There's got to be another side to this.
Oh, absolutely. Some people say, look, the WEF, they're all about those market-based solutions.
Yeah.
And those might not be enough to deal with the root causes of climate change, right? It's a systems problem.
Makes you think. So it's not just about what Agenda 2030 is trying to do. It's about how they get it done. And that, I got to say, that leads us perfectly to this whole 2050 thing.
Yeah.
The world the WEF seems to envision. What really stood out to you from the research about those 2050 projections?
Honestly, it's how interconnected everything is. They talk about decarbonization, obviously, but then there's also this huge focus on tech innovation. And then on top of that, global inclusion. It's not just that these are big, impactful things. It's that they're all tangled up together.
Yeah, you're right. They do keep popping up as a package deal. It's like the WEF saying, look, we can't have one without the others. So let's break it down piece by piece. Decarbonization first. What's the vision there? Paint me a picture.
Net zero emissions, that's the goal.
Which, just to clarify.
Oh, right. Your research, it defined it as like a state where the amount of greenhouse gases we're putting into the atmosphere is the same as the amount being taken out to sea. Balance, basically.
Got it. Balance.
And the WEF, they're really pushing for this fast transition to a low-carbon economy. No more messing around.
And that, I'm guessing, is where all the tech innovation comes in, right? Because we're not hitting net zero without some serious breakthroughs.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Your research, it highlighted how the WEF keeps talking about the fourth industrial revolution.
Okay. And that is?
AI, for one, artificial intelligence. Then you got robotics, biotechnology,
Right.
the big guns.
Okay, so now we're talking robots. Not just A&E robots, but like AI robots.
Yeah.
And this is where that future shock starts to set in, right?
It's definitely a valid concern. Even the WF admits that jobs are going to be lost, replaced by automation. And that's why they're putting so much emphasis on this global inclusion piece. Your research mentioned their work on those reskilling programs, getting people ready for this tech disruption.
So like a massive global retraining program, teaching people the new skills they'll need in this automated, decarbonized world?
Pretty much. But it's not just about, like, learning to code or whatever.
Oh.
Your source from the WEF, it emphasized soft skills, too.
Soft skills? Like what?
Things robots can't do, at least not yet. Critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, all those uniquely human things.
Interesting. So it's not enough to just be tech savvy. You got to be human savvy, too. Almost like the WEF is saying, hey, to survive the future we're building, you got to double down on your humanity, which honestly is kind of a comforting thought, less scary than, robots taking over.
It definitely has a more optimistic spin.
Yeah.
Right? But we got to be real. There are pitfalls here. Your research also mentioned criticisms of this whole reskilling thing.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Some people argue it puts too much burden on individuals, like, hey, just go learn some new skills. But it ignores those bigger systemic issues, like inequality.
Right. Like we're constantly walking this tightrope, optimism on one side, skepticism on the other, hoping for the best, but got to be ready for the challenges, too.
Totally. And that tension, it's really obvious when you look at the WEF's, shall we say, infamous Great Reset initiative.
Okay, so before we get too far down the rabbit hole of robots and reskilling, we got to talk about it, right? the Great Reset. It's like unavoidable at this point. You specifically asked us to unpack this, and I get it. It's everywhere online.
Oh, yeah. It's become this huge EE buzzword. And honestly, there's a lot of misinformation out there about it. Conspiracy theories, the works. But your research, it focused on what the WF actually said about the Great Reset, how they framed it.
Which, let's be real, it was 2020. The world was freaking out. Everything stopped.
Exactly. Your source, straight from the WEF, back then, they called it a unique window of opportunity.
A window of opportunity?
Yeah, to, like, shape the recovery, build something better after the pandemic. They were saying, look, the pandemic showed us where we're vulnerable. Healthcare, the economy, all of it. Things needed to change.
So not just bouncing back to normal, bouncing forward, using the whole crisis to make real progress, towards a more sustainable future, a more equal one, all that good stuff.
Exactly. And they had those three main areas they wanted to focus on. Remember?
Refresh my memory.
Okay, so one, they were like, we can't just focus on shareholders anymore. The whole shareholder-driven economic model, they said it wasn't working.
Okay, got it broader than that.
Right. Then, two, building resilience.
Yeah.
Making sure our systems can actually handle shocks. Because who knows what's coming next, right?
Right. Can't just crumble the next time something goes wrong.
Exactly. And then, of course, number three, sustainability. That keeps coming up, but they're talking full speed ahead towards a sustainable world.
Okay, so this is about, like, big picture changes, the entire foundation of how our society works, our economy. But let's bring it down to earth for a second. For someone listening to us right now, what does this actually mean? How does this affect their life?
$1 million question, right? The WEF, they'd say, look, change means opportunities, but also challenges. Your research, it mentioned there'd be new jobs in those green industries. Renewable energy, that kind of thing.
So some jobs disappear because of automation, but others pop up in these new sectors.
Right. But it's bigger than just jobs, right? It's about building a society that's more resilient, more equal. Your research, it talked about how the WEF wants stronger safety nets, more investment in education and reskilling, and this idea of stakeholder capitalism.
Okay, stakeholder capitalism. Explain it like I'm 5.
So it means businesses aren't just beholden to their shareholders, the people who own stock. They're accountable to everyone. Employees, the community, the environment. Everyone's got a stake.
Interesting. It's a lot to wrap your head around, I gotta say. But it seems like the takeaway from the Great Reset, at least according to the WEF, is that we gotta rethink everything. How we do business, how we live together on this planet, if we want a future that's, not a complete disaster.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, will they actually pull it off? Who knows? There are definitely valid criticisms, like how much influence does the WF actually have? Who really benefits from all these changes? Totally fair questions. But one thing's for sure. This conversation, it's more important now than ever. The WEF, Agenda 2030, the future we're building, it matters.
Couldn't agree more. And as always, dear listener, we gotta say, keep digging. Don't just take our word for it. Look for different perspectives. Come to your own conclusions. This deep dive, it's just the starting point.
Because at the end of the day, the future isn't something that just happens to us, right?
Yeah.
We create it with the choices we make, the conversations we have, what we do.
Boom. On that note of empowered action, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Hope you found it insightful, maybe a little mind-blowing, who knows. But until next time, keep asking those tough questions, keep learning, keep diving deep.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men. cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children. Victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!